Well, I suppose it is the time of year for politicians to start talking turkey. And that's what Sunak seems to be trying to give the impression of doing. And the question is he really talking turkey? Or is he just a lyrebird? I'm Theatrics. Now, I don't want to shock you, but Rishi Sunak has said something which none of us could possibly have imagined. So brace yourselves. Rishi Sunak says that hostile states will drive migrants to the UK and destabilise the West. Who'd have thunk it? Well, this is something that seems only to have this very moment impressed itself on Sunak's mind. Mind you, he did sack Suella Braverman for saying the same thing not too long ago, weeks ago, wasn't it? And at that time, it wasn't socially acceptable. But now, suddenly, it's okay because he's saying it. I tell you, this man is a slime ball par excellence. Anyway, let's have a look at this. Hostile states will increasingly drive people to our shores, he says. Well, as I say, now there's something nobody thought of. In a speech in Italy, the Prime Minister said that insufficient action would lead to growing numbers that will overwhelm our countries and our capacity to help those who need our help most. Good grief. Do you know what? I cannot even begin to understand the intelligence and prescience of this man. He's saying things that absolutely never occurred to me. I mean, the fact that, all those people are coming in dinghies, and that doesn't count. This will happen. We will be destabilised. I don't know how it's possible to destabilise this country anymore. There are whole villages that have been taken over by young men of fighting age who are taking over hotels and barracks and all sorts of dwellings. The government hardly knows where to cram them in. The only way that I can think of in the way of destabilisation now would be if a few more landed on the south coast and the whole country tipped up and rolled the Scots into England, because that really would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? Anyway, amid sustained pressure from his own MPs to stop the flow of boats across the channel, Mr. Sunak warned. I mean, he's really got his finger on the pulse, hasn't he? When people have been screaming about this for months and years. And now he's suddenly saying that as if it's something completely new. Failing to tackle illegal migration would destroy the public's faith in politicians and governments. Well, we're in danger of losing our faith, ladies and gentlemen, in politics and government. I'm sure every single one of you knows absolutely deep down that the government has our best interests at heart, and they've been doing nothing because there was nothing to be done. But in the future, if the government doesn't get on with things, then things are going to get bad. At least according to Sunak. Now, you may not believe this, but that's what he's saying. In the event of a failure to act, he added, our enemies will see how unable we are to deal with this. Sometimes I wonder if I've gone into a looking glass world, and instead of seeing the future, I'm just seeing the past. I think that works. Okay, Mr. Sunak was speaking at a festival hosted by Giorgia Meloni's populist Brothers of Italy party in Rome, which was described, by the way, by the BBC as a far-right rally. Just so you know what the BBC thinks about it. it emerged that 292 migrants crossed the Channel in 7 boats on Friday. 1 person died after a vessel sank during the journey to the UK. And I'm interrupting myself here to remind you to click like, to subscribe and to share. And if you're on YouTube, remember to click the notification bell. All the links to my other channels are in the description, including links to donation sites. I'm always grateful for donations, of course, but just clicking like is the best thing you can do for this video and my channel generally. And I'm reminding you that the Christmas 2023 competition is now open. The link to the video telling you all about it is also in the description. Now, a lot of politicians are talking about the deaths on these boats. Does anyone honestly believe that those politicians are worried about the deaths? More than the survivors who land on our shores, that they're trying to hide from us. His warning about hostile states driving people to our shores came after Finland, which shares an 800-mile border with Russia, accused Moscow of deliberately sending Middle Eastern migrants into the European Union to destabilize the bloc. And here we have, let's see, January 2021, 22, 23, and just look how the figures go up. The Western Balkan route, that's the Central Mediterranean route. And this is to Europe, not to Britain. Well, Britain too, I suppose. In further signs of the pressure on the Prime Minister, the Telegraph can reveal, they're always saying that, like they're pulling a curtain back, that more than 40 MPs, including Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, Sir John Hayes and Jonathan Gullis, have written to Mr Sunak urging him to stop an attempt to impose a shortened selection process for prospective MPs, which it is feared could shut out potential candidates on the right of the party. Well, I don't know how they reckon that will happen, but I just want to point something out. The Conservative Party have been in power since 2010, and they have done absolutely nothing about the rising tide of migrants fetching up on our shores. Nothing at all. The numbers have just gone up and up, and they've been trying to hide the numbers from us. And they're getting desperate about where to put these people, and they're being bunked, as I said, in all sorts of out-of-the-way places. Sometimes something like 1,000 young men in an old army barracks next to a village that had 800 people in it. And they're all men. They're not families. You know, it's worse than that, because part of the problem is not only that these people, many of them from primitive countries, yeah, I did say primitive countries which are primitive because they have no social cohesion and no sense of good manners outside the tribal conformity. So when they're outside the tribal conformity and they come into a place like Britain, which has a sort of consensus on good behaviour, they don't understand that at all. They do rather disgusting things in the street. They harass girls because they're not used to seeing girls walking about on their own. And in any case, the girls don't appear to have a tribal backing that will break their necks if they interfere with them. So they feel completely free to do whatever they want, and they do. It's this sort of thing. Well, apart from that, there's another situation. Albania has taken over, well, Albanian immigrants of various sorts of legality have taken over various criminal enterprises all over Britain. I did hear that all the brothels in London are now run by Albanian gangs. Now, the Albanian gangs want undocumented people here, people who are under the radar. They're not known about. They might give a name to the people who rescue them in the boat, and then half an hour later they're on the street with a different name. And they are pushing a lot of crime in this country. Now, Britain was never a crime-free zone, But we've got enough with our own crime, haven't we? And destabilise is hardly the word I would use to describe that situation. And in all the time the Conservatives have been in power, they have done nothing but obfuscate. Mr. Sunak's intervention suggests he's now prepared to push for a revamp of such conventions as part of his efforts to deter migrants from crossing the Channel in order to claim asylum. I didn't even understand that. The boats come to England, Britain, wherever. You just get other boats and tow them back. It won't take many times before they won't try again. That's all there is to it. But I understand the lifeboat institutions saving them from the dinghies because that's their job. This is a matter for the Navy. That's their job, and they're not doing it. Say in a private paper seen by this newspaper, Steve Baker, the Northern Ireland minister, warned that Downing Street must wake up to the fact that the Conservatives are being outflanked on the right by Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Yeah, and that's the problem, because voting Labour is going to be a disastrous well. I mean, there's a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea, an expression my mother used quite a lot. Okay, well, it's a very long article, but I think we've got the gist of it. Mr. Sunak said our opponents just want to ignore the issue. What has the Conservative Party been doing all this time? There's one thing that politicians seem to be able to do better than anything else, and that's ignore reality. They seem past masters at it. Those guys have been turning up on our shores for years, and every year it's been more and more and more, because what happens is there's the smugglers who drive these operations, or even the people themselves. They hear that people are getting in and there are fewer and fewer controls and more people and fewer people to control them, and they just make a punt for it, and they usually succeed. And this Rwanda plan, it's total rubbish. I mean, we'd be running planes backwards and forwards all day. Or the entire fleet of our aeroplanes would be just ferrying. How many people can you get on a plane all at once? And then there are a lot of legal ramifications to get through. Just stop them coming. That's all the British people ask. Let's see. Well, yeah, that's it. Number 10 said that after their talks on Saturday, Mr. Sunak and Ms. Maloney had agreed to co-fund a project, another project, that would see the two countries promote and assist the voluntary return of migrants currently stuck in Tunisia. Just tow them back. We are not responsible for the people in Tunisia. I'm quite sure that the poor buggers who go all the way up Africa to Tunisia find themselves in terrible situations, being bullied and even enslaved by the North Africans, because it is a North African tradition after all. I can understand that, but we are not responsible for these people. Once they hear that they can't get into Europe anymore, they will stop trying and stop going to North Africa, where they're at more risk possibly than in their own countries. Oh, right. Well, yeah, that's Rishi Sunak stating the bleeding obvious as if he just invented it. And people are getting fed up, and they're going to end up voting for Labour out of sheer desperation. And then they're going to discover, of course, that Labour are even more useless than the Conservatives. Although that's a bit difficult to come to grips with, I do have to admit. So, as I said, Sunak is talking Turkey. I'm pretty sure that quite soon he'll be eating crow. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.